which is a series of interviews of my family members about their experiences losing their homes. There's a typo right there. Losing their homes and becoming refugees, not once but twice, in 1948 and again in 1967. And my grandmother, Ibis Nasir, has left me all her unpublished memoirs. So it's there's a lot to work with. More than anyone else, though, it's my father, Jamil Nasir, a writer himself and a truly brilliant person who I have to thank for everything. And I want to dedicate this reading to him. My other opening statement is behind that. Okay, the first poem I'm going to read is called The Hole. After the Six-Day War, my grandfather's family returned to their home in Jerusalem to find that shots had come through every window and every door. The curtains were shredded to lace, my grandmother said. All the perfume and jewelry and guns had been looted from all the cabinets and drawers. And one particularly large shell had gone right through my great-grandfather's wardrobe, tearing an enormous hole through his 15 suits, his bathrobe, pajamas, overcoat, and all his shirts, leaving him only the clothes he was wearing. I didn't hear this particular family story until recently, but somehow even before I did, I could still feel that very same enormous hole going right through the center of my own chest. I've been wondering my whole life what made it. This one's called Not in Jerusalem. After our deaths, our hair will keep growing. My grandmother tells stories about Jerusalem. My father tells stories about Jerusalem. I tell stories about the stories I have heard about Jerusalem. After our deaths, our hair will keep growing, and flowers will burst from our chest cavities and the hollows of our eyes. I was a child of the war, but nobody told me. My father didn't want us to grow up angry, feeling like it was all on our shoulders the way it was all on his. Palestine is a place, though they tell you it isn't. It's a place my father has been carrying around on his shoulders these past 60 years, unable to put it down, unable to explain. After our deaths, our hair will keep growing. Whose death? Whose hair? Not mine. I'm not a saint, just a bystander in another country with my own life, a closed system, my head tucked down into the safe box of itself, the apartment with the 4 walls that never come down because nobody ever bombs the fuck out of me. I was a child of the war. I would not have been born if not for the houses emptied, beds still must, everything taken and then taken again. After our deaths. After. My grandmother in Jerusalem outside the Dome of the Rock with her canvas and paints, soldiers milling around her, soldiers everywhere. My father in Jerusalem running from the sound of gunfire in the schoolyard back to the home that wouldn't be home for long. I have never been to Jerusalem. My hair grows across the water toward my holy land and everybody else's. I was a child of the war, and then at long last I grew up. Now I carry a piece of Palestine on my shoulders so that my father might bear less weight. That's cool, right?
That's new. That's awesome.
This one is, it requires like a little bit of backstory. So, my family's ancestral village in Palestine is called Lifta. It's right outside Jerusalem. It's where my grandfather grew up until he was 18. And unlike a lot of villages, it was never rebuilt and resettled. It's still mostly destroyed. There's like a few houses remaining and a mosque remaining, but it's all empty and overgrown. They tried to like rebuild on it. Israel tried to like pave it and whatever, but there was a lot of just like effort to get it declared as like a heritage site. So now it's an Israeli nature preserve. And you can see like videos and pictures of it online, and it's like it lives in my head. So this poem is called In Lifta. The mosque grew fully formed out of the hillside. The empty houses sprouted like wildflowers. Birds live in them, singing backwards to our grandmothers, great-grandmothers, and their mothers, hands worn from the washing. In the well, a dead woman sings backwards to the river. In the graveyard, the stones sing backwards to the one stone all was cut from. God sings faceless from the mosque to everything, and everything sings back into the mosque, wind through open windows. My grandmother sings in her little house at the edge of Lake Michigan, and when my father asks her not to, she pretends she doesn't hear. My grandmother wears a blue haze, and laughing, she portends her own death. From the mosque, very far away, God sings the lake to the shore and out again. I am inventing all of this. I am inventing Lifta, holding a seance for a village I've never been to. Jesus probably walked through there on his way to Jerusalem, and he was probably singing. And the sky there probably wears a blue haze like my grandmother's, and the dead there are probably looking for me as I am looking for them. This one is called My Sorrow, which I think is like a corny name for a poem, but it's just what the poem is called. I just work here. It's not, like, this one's not explicitly about Palestine, but, like, it is. I don't know. I braided my sorrow into my hair. I pushed it to the back of my underwear drawer among the wool socks and fancy bras. I packed it away with my winter clothes. I packed it away with my summer clothes. I packed it away. I put my sorrow into the book and called the book My Sorrow, but the publisher said it would never sell. Too depressing. I put it on my to-do list. I put it in my calendar. I spat it into the sink with my toothpaste. I spat and I spat. I made a cake out of my sorrow and I brought it to the birthday party, and when the lights went out, I sang. I put it into the glass recycling. I put it out on the curb with a sign that said, free. I put it into the trash, and the trash made an island of sorrow in the middle of the Pacific Ocean that could be seen from outer space. I threw it into the wind, and the wind blew. I threw it into the river, and the river flowed. I left it in your voicemail box. Your voicemail box is full now of sorrow. I sent it through GoFundMe. I sent it through PayPal. I Venmo'd you my sorrow. I left it in that book I didn't finish. I left it in my other pants. I began a poem about Palestine and left it there. I began a poem about my mother and left it. I began again. I gave my sorrow to God who already has so many sorrows. I gave my sorrow to the devil who then asked me to dance. I gave my sorrow to the man on the street corner holding the sign that said, anything helps. I sweetened my coffee with it. I used it to salt the meal. I put it in my notes app. I put it in my notebook. I put it in this poem so that I could give it again to you. Oh. I have one more, and it's the longest poem I've ever written. Also, sorry if this is like an awkward angle. If anyone has noticed, I'm gonna.
It's all good. It's all good.
Is that okay? Because I can't. It's like I'm like my eyes are over here, but my mouth is over here. It's a whole thing. This one is called "The Story of My Wound." I keep Palestine within my body, tucked behind my 7th rib on the left side, just below my heart, but not quite touching it. If you put your hand to it, you can feel it blistering with heat, and every time a bomb goes off in Gaza, it gets a little hotter. And every time somebody dies in Gaza, it starts to bleed a little more, so as you can imagine, I can't keep a shirt clean. I'm sopping up blood day in and day out as I go to the store, as I cook dinner, as I wash the dishes, as I sit on the sofa by the window where I always sit and write. I've got one hand on my wound, trying to keep it closed. When I'm working at the restaurant, customers ask me, "What's that you're doing with your other hand?" "Oh, nothing much," I say with a smile, because I need them to tip. I have to do laundry several times a week. I sleep wrapped in a towel, but each morning when I wake up, it's so dark red, it's practically black. My bed is unsalvageable. It's a husk of dried blood and half-remembered dreams of a better world. I finally went to the doctor, but they said that nothing was wrong with me. I said, "You don't understand, it's not me who's bleeding, it's coming from Palestine." They said, "Don't you mean Israel?" And I screamed in agony because in that moment my wound grew bigger. So I decided to finally operate on it myself. At home, I took a kitchen knife and heated it in the blue flame of my gas stove, and then I tried to cut out the wound, but I found beneath all that blood and infection and rot, there was a smell of cloves and allspice, and olive oil, and oranges, and beneath that there was some powdered limestone as from a house that had been reduced to rubble, and beneath that there were a bunch of my grandmother's paintings of Jerusalem, including those that had been lost or sold. Beneath that, there was all the birdseed that my grandfather had poured on the floors of the bird cages right before my family fled their house to hide out in that basement during the 6-Day War. And beneath that was the key to the old house in Lifta that my great-grandmother held onto until her death, and beneath that was a field of red poppies. And beneath that was Jesus himself, nailed to his cross and weeping for our sins as usual. And after him out came the prophet Muhammad, who ascended up to heaven on urgent business, and after him came the long-awaited Messiah of Judaism, who said he was going to put off his arrival just a little longer until we got our shit together. And after him came Mahmoud Darwish, who was happy to see me, and who held out to me a book of poems and an immortal olive branch. And after him came my father, except he was 12 years old, and he was pretending that he was not afraid to die. And after him came my father again, only as he is now, almost 70, with tears in his eyes, and he asked me once more, as he had just a few weeks ago over a FaceTime call, how is it possible that this world can be both so beautiful and good, and at the same time so evil and horrible? And at last, at the very bottom of my very deep wound, there was me, just me, with tears in my own eyes, answering my father as I had before, I don't know. And I realized then that I couldn't cut the wound out of my body any more than I could cut myself out of myself. So I wrapped my wound up again in my old bloody towel, crawled back into bed, went to sleep, and dreamed. Thank you.
This was intended to be a love letter to Armin Tolentino, but I think like all good art is now also a love letter to Jaye. So whenever you hear Armin's name, it's Armin and Jaye. I met Armin and Jaye at one of my first literary events in Portland. I found him standing at the back of the room, literally leaning against a wall with his hands in his pocket like James fucking Dean. And I thought, okay, I have found my fellow bad kid. And turns out I was right in the sense that all poets are bad kids. But I'm also oversimplifying one diversion. When I first moved to Portland, most of my friends, including people in Portland, said, how are you going to stand the constant rain? And I've struggled to tell people what it feels like to arrive somewhere out of the rain, to take off your coat and hug someone who's been waiting for you. And that's what it's like to see Armin smile, whether for the first time or my 10th time. And that's what it's like reading his poetry as well. In his book, We Meant to Bring It Home Alive, Armin presents worlds of tragedy in which the speakers experience great grief and anger. In one poem, he imagines a boxing ring and says, It's a box big enough to fit you in one corner and the entire world in the other. But because he describes this ferocity of living so perfectly, he reminds us of the exquisiteness of being human with complex, warring, and ever-evolving experiences. White supremacy exacts and enacts violence by dehumanizing and by looking away. And whether through endless rain or ravenous fire, Armin reminds us to continue seeing one another. Armin and Jaye are tremendous friends and artists because they're not interested in transforming, but in seeing exactly what is there and exactly who you are. Most of you are already friends of them, but for those who are new, it's my great pleasure to get to introduce you to this incredible poet. Please welcome Armin Tolentino.
We love you, Armin.
How am I supposed to read after that? Jesus. Oh my gosh. I've been weepy lately. I was back home in Jersey. Anyone been to Jersey? I was in the great state of New Jersey singing karaoke, as you do if you're in Jersey and you're Filipino, or if you're Filipino and you're anywhere, you sing karaoke. And I was like, okay, yeah, let's put on some Bread. And I was trying to sing a song by Bread, and I could not get through the song by Bread because I was starting to cry. Because I don't know, it really moved me, and I'm feeling a lot of things. And that's coming from me right now, and it's so special to be in this space. Can I get a happy birthday to Constellation? I'm so grateful to be here and be part of this community. And, you know, I've been seeing folks because I came back from Jersey, and I'm like, hey, you know, Happy New Year. I hope your New Year's well. How's your New Year? And I asked those questions at work. I'm sure you all have had to do something like that, where you're like, oh, how's your New Year going, right? And some people are like, fine or good. And then they ask me, and I'm like, I gotta be honest, it's been sort of shitty. This is sort of a shitty start of the year. 2025 hasn't gone great. We had to say goodbye to a pet that my wife loved. My sister had to go to an emergency operation today. I hope she's okay. Her boyfriend has been texting me, so I think everything's okay. I have some weird pain in my side, which might be shingles, or it might be that I'm old and I can't like do anything at the gym anymore. It could be any of those things, right? But what I love about this space is that we can show up and you don't have to bullshit each other. Right? So you can show up and someone's going to ask you how you're doing, and you can be honest here. So I'm going to be as honest as possible as I can be, and I'm just part of that honesty is that I'm absolutely moved to be here with you all in this space. And Jaye, oh my gosh, incredible work. So let me just try to read some poems. Okay. And also, I think all these poems are all in first person, but I'm not the speaker of the poems, except when I am absolutely the speaker of the poems. Okay? So I just want to be clear about that, right? And this first poem, in honor of constellation, has a constellation in it. That constellation is called Orion, and that constellation Orion is the hunter. Last night, Orion. I looked up and saw Orion stalk between the cracks in the clouds. Because my car was dead midway across the Susquehanna, reckless hunter. I saw all the stars where the shattered sternums of caribou split with his arrows. The vast tundra of heaven littered with cooling bodies. My car was frozen, as was my resolve, staring over the railing of the Haddam. I could walk south to Havre de Grace, or north to Perryville, or stand breathless above this sacred river until the bridge crumbled and emptied into the Chesapeake. Where did he dress the kill? The blind of clouds would shift to flash the sneering moon. I did what I have always done, thinking all the while, what you kill, you take with you. You never leave it to rot, even yourself. Sanctuary. Child, you can't swim, and there's no time to learn. You're terrified of sharks. You read once how they never sleep. It only takes a speck of blood to draw them by the millions. You've seen the grainy footage. Rafts like this tossed about like flecks of chum. The sea, you're certain, churns with teeth. My father was a skinny boy like you. I was never a skinny boy. I was plump with American papers, with corn syrup and cartoons and a native tongue etched on every warhead. The nearest to sharks I came was, as a young man, I stared from the bridge down to the Susquehanna and saw the dorsal fins right on the Black River a Mayday that pleaded, "You don't have to do this." My father says the Bible teaches us that God helps those who help themselves, which is a lie. Those words, no matter the translation, appear nowhere in that book, which has plenty of lies already and doesn't need another. You have a mother who lied to get you to board this raft because she loves you. She said the sharks are only a story when she really meant everything is a story. And some are terrible and she doesn't know how yours ends. My father was a boy when he crossed an ocean alone. My father wet his bed years later, even deep into his fatherhood. Every time I stare at the sea, I should think of where you are. Boy in the news, nameless like all the boys in broken janelas, watching the future swallowed by waves. You and my father and all the boys who are nothing like me because you are each strong enough to hold your breath for days straight. So when you shiver on the raft, you ask your mother for nothing, but instead bite hard on the web of your hand, even if you draw blood. The siren for sharks to circle. My father believes that the proverb which saved him, even if it's not a Bible verse, should be. That even if it's not true, it's true. You understand. We'll find sanctuary in anything. I feared sharks once too, but what I really feared was darkness. The ocean's horror is how we can't see through it. A shark's mouth is an ocean within the ocean. Once seeking sanctuary from the militia's Scheming inside my own brain, I stood on that bridge, spanning the Susquehanna, believing what we fear most might just be what will save us. Maybe you bleed yourself on the ocean on the first night of every night of your life to ring the church's bells. The gullet of a shark, the only sanctuary left that will open its doors. Oh. All right, let me share some maybe a project I'm working on. And so, sometimes you write things because you're feeling something yourself, and you got to put it out there. Like, hey, something happened to me, and I want to put it on. I got to give it space. I need to live somewhere. And then sometimes you write on premise, right? You have an idea. And you're like, oh, I want to write on this idea. What if aliens it did? What if blah, blah. And sometimes you write because it's fun to write. Right? Sometimes you're like, ooh. Even when you hate writing, you love writing. Right? And so, like, some of y'all have been to those, like, sip and paint parties, whatever. You go to this place, they have you, like, paint. You don't actually need the wine. It was fun to paint. You know it was fun to paint because you used to do that as a kid. They gave you paint. It was fun, right? And it's fun to write sometimes. And I've been inspired by different writers, including, if you've seen Eric's collection over there, the middle has this sonic crown. And you're like, oh, look how he builds off of this form, right? And I've got two sonnets in my sonnet crown, so I can't do that. But I got this idea of like, hey, what if you just enjoy writing for the sake of writing and for the sake of sound? If you're a poet, you like sound, right? You're like, oh, and so then I had this name Dominica in my head. I don't know anyone named Dominica. But I was like, that would be fun to write something with the name Dominica. And I kept seeing where I could put this name in and what this character or speaker or this entity could be. But what could I do with different forms with Dominica? So this is my effort for that. Dominica, by the way, is a bad choice for a name if you're doing things in form because it eats like 4 syllables. Right off the bat, your iambic is shot. So go with a Joe. If you're doing this, go with a Paul, a Joe. That'll work better. But all these poems are about a Dominica who I picture as sort of like my version of Pippi Longstocking. If she grew old in a town like Astoria. That's what I'm picturing here. And a speaker who's like buddies with Dominica, but he's sort of like a bumbling fool. That's what I picture in this collection. So I'll finish with some poems about Dominica. 6 a.m. between the Pacific and the winter solstice. Dominica's barefoot and clenching her machete. I shouldn't help, but I'm compelled, Lord knows. The lighthouse barely cuts the fog on the jetty. Autumn turned over. Dominica's not ready. The sky is drooling a gibberish of snow. Dominica, where'd you leave your shoes? Her machete is as rusted as her toenails. A gust conjures an eddy that spooks my ears. A tiny man grows old in the lighthouse that burns at the tip of the jetty. I buckle in the cold. This planet's askew and unsteady. I'm dizzy, Dominica. Where can we go? How is she not freezing? Dressed in scraps and a machete. A dulled down blade is its own type of deadly. The man who knows he'll die in the lighthouse glows with the will to save the ships from the jetty. Dominica, what can I hold on to? But I already know. The beach's sand is pummeled sailors' bones. Dominica, I plead. I want to rest my heart on her machete and watch the warships gash themselves upon the jetty. A couple more. A vigil beneath stars like a colony of ants. Dominica's outside, the Desdemona waiting to be let in. It's been boarded up since before she was born. It's boarded up and ants pour through the slats. She forgot something inside, she says. She forgot something important and waits each night for the door to open when it won't. It's holy to open your hope so wide all the faithful can pour through like a pilgrimage of ants. I'll wait through the cold with her. I pull out ivy tangled in her hair. Her eyes are closed when a sliver of light, a hair's width, a groan. I swear I saw the door. No. But still, we hold each other's door open. It's Sunday. We're together, outside, ill-starred. One more poem for everyone. For the last time, Dominica's boxing that ghost. No one asked me to come, but I came because it's wrong to die without a witness. With just the seagulls watching the beating in Cordell and Sons hardware parking lot. She wrapped her knuckles with burlap strips. She's shadow boxing, staying warm as the wind strips the oaks of December's last leaves. The ghost is somewhere here too, like a clot in the neck, invisible and braced to become a lethal blow to the brain. He's beaten her 6 times already, she said. No witnesses but God, who watches all martyrs bear witness through senseless acts of faith. From each loss, she stripped away his secrets, she said. Rain is now beating down on her and me, the gulls, the trash, and the ghost I can't see. Seeing doesn't make things become real. He's real to her and she is real to me. Lots of souls we walk straight through every day. Like in this lot where Cordell's name bears witness to a man who stood here once, who came and went without a son, who left the store now stripped of all its copper wires. A bell I'm deaf to rings. The ghost must be the air that shimmers every time she jabs. She's beating him to the punch. Her feet are light as the beating wings of the gulls that fight for joy and trash in this parking lot. She's picked the teeth of the lock that is the ghost, like that fabled Cuban who schooled the world champ, witnessed only by a Franciscan nun who served as referee. Strips of burlap fly off her fists, but the round won't come to an end. And the ghost won't stop coming forward, a king tide. She's turning purple with the beating. The rain is coming down in sheets, stripping the blood from her face and forming a pink pool in the lot. I should be her cut man, her witness, her towel, her bell. She won't take a knee or give up the ghost. She's cut too deep to clot. I'm screaming at the basilica, but God won't come down. Ring the fucking bell. But he witnesses beatings all the time. The gulls drink this gifted blood. The ghost shreds her to strips. Thank you. Joe.
The Book of Joe. The Book of Sue. The Book of Dominicus.
Guys, I'm freaking out and now I gotta talk. You guys are amazing. Like the beauty of being alive, like you guys make me feel like I have feelings and I'm a person. That was incredible. I have to breathe, like sobbing into my kafia, and yeah, I get it's not a bad thing to be like just so filled with love. I love you guys so much. Woo!
You got it.
I know you know.
I do know. I do know.
I'm also kind of bummed because obviously you know I forgot my printed out version of things. And now I have to read from my phone like a young person. And I've never done this before. Even though I masquerade as a young person in my fancy sweatsuit. I have teenagers, and so they tell me this is okay. It's my Christmas present for my kids. It's actually very fancy. And it's a sweatsuit. Okay. This is why I don't like talking in front of groups, because I'm weird. Okay. I want to tell you a little story about Eric Tran that he probably doesn't even remember. If you know me, you know that I've been stewarding a fundraiser for my Palestinian friend, Tamara Abu Dayer, and her family, and they have become like family to me. I love them beyond what is explainable in words. But when I first met Tamara in May, I decided to steward this fundraiser, and my husband always teases me, like, I don't do anything like half measures. Like, I was just like full in. So I was full in. I was like, made all these posts for social media. I spent all this time. I sent texts to everybody. I sent like a mass email to like 500 people. And we raised literally like thousands of dollars in just like a day or two. I know, yay. And then my friend told me that he did some follow-up research and that I was likely scammed and that Tamara was probably a bot. And we hopped on a Zoom call and he showed me all of his evidence, and it threw me into like an insane like panic and shame spiral, and I couldn't eat, I couldn't sleep. I was so greasy and I was in a sweatsuit that wasn't cool. And it was really a bad time for me because I kept thinking like, oh my God, I pulled like all of these people into this scam. Some of my friends had literally donated like $300, like $500. People were this was in May, and people were desperate to like help. So I had to warn everyone to stop sending money, tell them that maybe I was scammed. But then I kept thinking, what if I'm not scammed and this is literally a person in Palestine who's like trying to survive a genocide, and all of a sudden like I'm blocked or on social media and like all this fun. So like it was bad. So I sent out this email, I communicated with everybody, I told them I would like figure it out and keep them posted. People were generally nice, but not everyone. So like one of my friends kind of yelled at me and told me like never ask her for anything to donate to anything again. Lots of people just said like, well, tell me how to get a refund, which was not good for me. It's in my like panic and like shame spiral. And then I got a message from Eric Tran. It showed up in my inbox, and it said, I don't know if you remember this, just a short missive as you figure it out. We're all stuck in an impossible situation. Tiny little humans trying to course correct for awful things imposed by a war profit machine. There's no shame in being a tender person trying to make a difference for another human life. And I kept coming back to that message every time I started feeling like I was going to freak out really bad. Over and over, I would just look at that message and it told me it was okay. So I tell you this story because this is how I know Eric is such a tender and thoughtful and very deep person who can look into a situation and like touch the humanity in it. Mm-hmm. It is an absolute honor to know you. Mm-hmm. Portland is so lucky to have you. Mm-hmm. Last year, Eric told us that Constellation is his home reading series, mm-hmm. and we like freaked out because it was so meaningful. And he's an extremely talented poet. So not only is he just a wonderful person, he's so gifted. Historically, I'm not a poetry person, but Eric has helped me love poetry. The poems in his book, Mouth, Sugar, and Smoke, are so finely and exquisitely crafted, and at the same time, they feel like raw and just open and sincere and really vulnerable. And I think that's like, there's a magic balance in there. And this is me trying to talk about poetry and a fiction writer. I don't know. It's kind of like wine. Like, I don't know how to talk about it, but I know what I like. He can take like weird, like random ass headlines and turn them into like beautiful, heartbreaking pieces about like the interaction between our like material bodies and our experience of loss. He can weave humor into something that will also make you weep in just a very short form. We are so thrilled that you are reading with us for this special birthday event. And yeah. Thank you for being you and for being here and being a core part of this community. We love you so much.
One of the poet laureates has a poem, and it closes with, "It's never ever delicate to live, but I mishear things all the time, and I think maybe it should have said, it's never delicate to love." I don't know whether I'm a nice person or not. Because when people ask me how I am, I'm like, I'm fucking great. And someone knows me very well was like, well, I don't really ever know how to take that when you say that. But I always mean it. Because I'm sure you can all relate to this, you know, if you've ever felt like you didn't belong anywhere and then suddenly you realize you do belong somewhere. What could you be but wonderful? This first poem is called If I Call You Cousin, I Love You, with the alternate title, Palestine, You Are My Cousin. My first cousin and me sailing on bikes, plucked from our neighbors' garbage heaps, rust hugging the necks and elbows, our pockets full of Saturday morning mango bits crusted with chili, and my sometimes tormentor, sometimes mall companion, sometimes refusing to be seen next to me in public, sometimes disappeared for weeks. He pierces the air between us to say, would you care if I got shot right now? Of course, I say. You're wearing my jacket. What an annoying child I am. Because it's our jacket. Shared like our name for each other, cousin. Our fist, rich with quarter candy, our tongue numbed sweet with small wealth. Whose ear heard the family story first? How, when the bombs dropped, our mothers and aunts crawled into the same bed to share their final night together. What an annoying child I am. Our ears cradled our history. I mean, how could anyone bear this alone? And so here we are, survived with and by each other, survived by not how the obituaries say it, but plain and childishly, free from euphemism, next to, inseparable. One of us will make home where the other grinds his teeth. We will dream bare-assed facing one ancient tabletop fan. One of us will wake up because the other left the blinds open. Forgive us, whoever it was. Here, as an apology, the other will start the coffee. Many hands make love a less clumsy practice. Is the projector working or should
I'm going to be honest. Not quite sure what's that.
Would it be easier? Would you just hand it over to me?
Yeah.
Thank you, Lance.
I have one job.
I actually met Lance 10 years ago when I thought I was going to give up on writing, and whether he knew it or not, he convinced me otherwise. So, fuck you, Lance. You probably are not going to be able to see this. So I'm going to do like the screen reader situation. You're going to help me choose an image to share with you. So I'm going to use the screen reader. Are you going to choose the image where a very handsome Asian man is kissing a very hot black man? Or are you going to choose the image where a very handsome naked Asian man is kissing a very handsome black man? Or are you going to pick the image where a very handsome naked Asian man is kissing a very handsome black man? And so on and so forth. This movie is called Monsoon. And it's starring Henry Golding, who starred in Crazy Rich Asians. I know, right? He plays a gay Vietnamese British man going home to Vietnam to spread his mom's ashes. And as you can tell, I watch it for very erudite education. So picture this in your mind. This poem is called Henry Golding Speaks Better Vietnamese Than I Do, Monsoon 2021. Henry, help. Làm ơn giúp đỡ em đi, bởi vì I get so distracted. My mouth was once hard pressed to find the Vietnamese word for faggot. Not the slur. Those woods have scraped my face enough. I mean, I want the kind of words that lovers pass back and forth, like the hot cherry ass of a cigarette, the echoes of a dream in the infant morning. Sometimes when I can't sleep, I whisper versions of darling to the emptiness above me. Om sa. Whoa, you. In a rhythm like snoring or beating myself off. Come closer, Henry. I have a secret. I brought a boy home. In a rare moment, I let his tongue free. He said, "An, tell me what you want to do to me." And Henry, I had nothing to give to him. I've mistaken the desire for love for the fear of loneliness. I've mistaken the silence after a record finishes for the music itself. Once, I believed blood just floated inside of us, ready to run at any puncture. But Henry, I'm not entirely wrong. Mistake could mean and. Every poem is a love poem. Every poem is an elegy. And so in this way, every poem is a self-portrait. So Henry, no poem should be beautiful alone. So Henry, don't let beauty be a morsel and the hook. Let beauty be a hallway. Let love be the switch we can find in the dark, and let memory be the dark. Let anger soften our footsteps. Let fear form a bell between the walls. Let forgiveness be nothing between the walls. Let nothing be the door. Để sự quyết định của tim trở thành một câu hỏi. Để sự câu hỏi đi bộ với mình. để mỗi con đường trở thành một đại dương, trở thành cái giường, trở thành cái gương. Henry, I said hope. I meant between us is a home. Embracing us is the sky. I've only written 2 poems in 2024, which is an incredible relief. You sound like I love poetry. And, well, that was a way to say I give them all to you. One of them is based on 2 things that I've hated for a long time. One of which is the Sistina, and the other of which, maybe controversially, is the movie In the Mood for Love. Because I've always not always, lately I've grown to hate unrequited longing, or limerence as some people call it. I think you should only want what you want, and then you should want it, for God's sakes. But something about me is when I say I'm afraid, when I hate something, it's often because I'm afraid of it. And when I say I'm afraid of something, then I'm sort of challenged to then do it. So I wrote a Sistina about In the Mood for Love, specifically about Maggie Chung's Cheongsam in the movie. And you can't see this at all, so I'm going to describe it to you. There's a series of traditional Chinese gowns that this woman wears. And if I was going to be a screenwriter, I'd say on the screen are 7 different Cheongsam worn by a woman, but she's not nearly as pretty as the person telling me about the image. So instead of who cares about what a Sistina is? But a Sistina is basically an unnecessarily complicated form where you repeat the N words to make some sort of weave or a tapestry. But instead of using words, I use the Cheongsam itself. No, it's not that great. So then it ends up looking something like this, which you can't really see either, but it's sort of like a tapestry of tapestries. This is called Sistina, after Maggie Chung's Cheongsam with In the Mood for Love, 2000. Moai slept in a sleeping bag embroidered with flowers. She wrapped it around my waist, and as a new daffodil, I sprung and tiptoed the dark wool carpet while she watched, her hand swan to her neck. I imagined myself an actress lit in camera flash, a life of satin sheets where even lamplight reaches for rainbow. In college, I wore my first dress, not colorful, just a white bedsheet I stitched into a row of rosettes, a mimic of Bjork's swan dress at the Oscars. When I split a seam while sewing, my fingers spent lilies, I took it to my family's tailor, who cradled the stuffed swan neck. You made this? Come back. I'll teach you the foundations. I've started wearing Jaye in lieu of suits. My first was an iridescent jewel blue, sewn by a woman who wore a golden necklace with silk PJs printed with tiny flowers. Outside her shop, guarded by branches of bougainvillea in our respective fineries, we took a picture. She texted me later. From your friend, Beyonce. She named herself that. Hung it from the ceiling in her shop, Beyonce fashion. She laughed like someone who wears a rose behind her ear, one she bought herself and takes dancing on Fridays. I find the flowers I love now are the flowers I've already known. In high school, I envied and adored a thin punk boy who was straight but wore frilled daisy sundresses because why not? I thought him brave and glamorous, and only later learned he was beaten up every time. The bruises made me sad and confused. Practical is the last thing I want to hear about dressing. Insect, I'll take. Beastly, unbecoming, so unsubtle that it leaks pollen in the spring. I took a first love to a dance and wore a snowdrop in Jersey. He was confused and timid, not sure to call me a beautiful girl or a boy, but we unspooled the world outside of nouns. You are beautiful. I want to dance with you. Here or under street lights, or in cocoa black, on concrete, or a pastry box of flowers. Truths I won't prove. Everything is shaped like a rose if held to the light. To adorn your neck, you must love how your feet step on the ground. What shines bright once lives again and again in the flowers. I have one last poem for you all. Can't state enough how much this space means to me. For so many reasons, and inarticulately, I think a lot about queerness. Not gay as in happy, but queer as in fuck you, and queer as in like, how do we escape individuality? I was watching Smut earlier. I said that to Jessica and she was like, of course you were. I was watching Smut earlier and they quoted a French philosopher who said something like making love is the pursuit of the dissolution of self. And that's almost right, I think. But I don't think it's about the dissolution of self because that's very violent. I think it's about remembering that all of us exist as connected to each other. And queerness should only exist insofar as we, I don't know, are interested in justice and love for each other. So my last poem for you today is a really holy one. It's called Party at Shit's House. In the sun-spattered morning after my first post-breakup rebound, after asking this guy all weekend to wreck me, after admitting it's like flipping a coin if bottoming will delight or bleed me, I shared with my straight friend the shame of that one night stand, that night's massive third leg, how I was so swept to the ground, I stole that guy's sock, so that after my life might smell more like him, that in that last inevitable, enviable elephantine careening towards the edge of blowing my load, I let my heart go free for the first time in months and shit myself. And that man's still hard dick. My friend, so loving and so hetero, considered his regret black coffee and said, you know, you shouldn't show up to a party at Shit's house and be upset when shit is there. But you don't know, I wanted to say. My rebound felt warmth spilling down his leg and asked if his cum was leaking out. No, I had to say, that's me. The stink of me that has nowhere to hide. You don't know, I wanted to say. I still think about another man who fucked me too hard and how I didn't ask him to stop. Instead, I offered to blow him in exchange for a moment of relief. I remember licking bowel and blood off my teeth and was grateful for the escape. I never told you. Last year, another beautiful man forced his hands onto me, and I wanted nothing more than to be asleep. I mean, what use is a shit-eating grin when you could have silence instead? When that beautiful man left, I stripped down the bed and left the sheets to fall like kudzu across the starting field. I dreamt of them grabbing my legs and somehow managed to catch myself because, friend, I want to believe that you believe that I'm strong in some ways that matter. I want my body to be known and somehow still mine alone. But maybe I want you to say, Eric, of course you're strong against what scares you most. Of course you're so beautiful and so goddamn stupid to think your body will ever be separate from mine. When we hold each other, no light will pass between us. I mean, we will hold each other how the moon holds up the night. Okay, friend. I admit it. I want you to bring your knuckles to my door. Tell me to answer it, and I'll say, welcome. It's me. Shit. I'll tell you how I haven't straightened up for company, but that there's cake in the freezer for moments just like this. All you have to do is say, yes, Eric, traffic was awful. We experienced such awful things together. Now be a darling. Take my coat.
No, I do know. I know what's going on.
I'm not supposed to be up here, though.
No, it's okay. We have.
What do we do with the microphone? Because we're different.
You can talk to it.
Okay. I hate talking to it, but okay.
Jaye is getting a gift of appreciation for Lance. Has meant so much. Think about it. I've been going to reading series all over the country to do my own stuff, and there's nowhere like this, really. This is huge, being able to use this space. Yeah, can we get some space? We really appreciate your partnership. Thank you so much.
When Jessica and I don't need to. When we decided that we wanted to do a reading series together, we did all this work and did our first Instagram post, and we're like, coming soon, because we needed to figure out a space. Lance saw our Instagram post and was like, let's talk.
Yeah.
And whatever, a week later,
Yeah.
we were here.
Oh.
So,
Really hard to believe how well this worked out. It was amazing to hear applause from the mezzanine level. And thank you so much for listening. Thank you for your energy. Jaye has more presents.
we have birthdays. We have birthdays, and we have a thank you. So first, just a big thank you.
Yes.
And Jessica's birthday. The 15th? It is. Yeah. So
Thank you. She surprised me. I didn't know.
That's another awkward moment on the microphone for me. I don't know. I hear it. And Jay's birthday.
like I'm not like might have provided the space for like youth created a home. So let's give a hand to June.
Sometimes we have readers who are kind of nervous and they're like, I'm gonna read some new work, I'm not sure, and we're always like, no, seriously, this is the nicest community. Like, read your craziest, off the wall shit that you want to try on the
Can
audience.
I say fuck? Can I be political?
Can I be sexy? Can I be sexy? Yeah, you can do it. You can do whatever you want, because everybody's really nice.
Listen, we appreciate you so much. Please celebrate with us upstairs if you're so inclined. And if you want to hang out in the bookstore, that's also cool. The bookstore is very much open for business. Eric has books, a book, and it's really good. Armin has a book, and it's really good. Jaye has The Passport, which is amazing. So the bookstore is also like full of books. And though Melissa is not here, Jaye can sell them to you. Like awesome books. So this was a beautiful night. Thank you for being part of it.
Thank you, Jaye.
Again, hard seltzer. Thank you, help yourself to the fridge. Like, there was just food and going and enjoying each other's company, making friends. Thank you.
I was so surprised I didn't cry. Every time I heard that, I was like, the anthology that's in our website. You have to buy it through the website. And all the information is on the website. That copy's mine, so don't sell it to anybody. But yeah, that's just there to display it.
I love it. I need to buy it.
Yeah, that's where I fell in love with her, and I got to know. I saw her last month. I went to a Palestinian poetry day that this woman wrote. Oh, that's when I saw it. And she's there. She's like, I'm obsessed with her.
Stacy, this is our friend Forrest. Forrest, this is Stacy. This is one of Jaye's best friends and inspirations. Forrest is from New Jersey. So New Jersey got some love tonight.
Yes.
Which is kind of fun. Candace is here, over there somewhere. I heard her whoop a little bit. It's New Jerseyans might do some things.
This was nice. This is a lot of fun. There are a lot of people.
It was really fun.
I know.
Yeah.
I'm very